story of Tu Lai, a very peculiar poor man. In a small village, there was a young man named Tu Lai, a young man so poor that he had nothing but an elderly mother, a symbol of filial piety and righteousness. Famous for his filial piety and simple life, he lived with his elderly mother in poverty, owning nothing but his love for her. One day, people gave Tu Lai a hammer to repay him for saving a drowning child. With this gift, Tu Lai took his mother to the mountains to live in a cave. He padded the cave with straw, turning it into a cozy and cool dwelling for his mother. Upon receiving the hammer, Tu Lai took his mother into the mountains to find a cave. He made the cave comfortable with soft straw, creating a cool and pleasant space for his mother to live peacefully. Every day, he would go out to gather wood, bringing it back to trade for rice at the market. Even though he earned little money, Tu Lai always managed to save enough to buy meat for his mother, caring for her with both love and filial piety. Not only did he care for his mother, but he was also respected by the local people and called a warrior for his compassion and bravery. Whenever locals faced difficulties or accidents, he was always ready to help them with all his might. Thanks to these actions, the name Tu Lai became known far and wide as a symbol of virtue and righteousness. Tu Lai was not only loved for his filial piety, but also for his generous heart and tireless spirit in helping others. His life, though simple, was full of meaning and value, making the story of the poor Tu Lai a shining example of compassion and filial piety. Living in the mountains, locals often came to Tu Lai and offered him large sums of money to capture gentle forest animals such as deer, monkeys, weasels, rabbits. These harmless and easily caught animals were desired by many for pets or for sale. However, no matter how much money was offered, Tu Lai always firmly refused. As a true Buddhist, Tu Lai believed in compassion and never harmed any living creature, no matter how small. For him, all beings had the right to live and be happy. Therefore, not only did he not capture them, but he also loved them. He regarded the forest animals as friends, fellow creatures living harmoniously on the land of nature. Gradually, thanks to Tu Lai's compassion and closeness, the forest animals became accustomed to his presence. They often came near where he and his mother lived, unafraid. This sight made Tu Lai's life even more beautiful and peaceful. The cave where he and his mother lived was not just a shelter, but also became a vibrant little garden. On both sides of the cave, exotic flowers bloomed, displaying their brilliant colors. Birds nested nearby, their chirping voices ringing out each morning, creating a peaceful and serene atmosphere. Tu Lai's life in the mountains was a blend of man and nature. He needed no wealth or fame, just a simple life where he could care for his mother and love all the living beings around him. The forest animals, plants, and birds became his close friends, creating a lively and peaceful scene in the pristine mountain forest. For 6 consecutive days, the rain did not stop, making the mountain forest where Tu Lai and his mother lived damp and quiet. The continuous rainy days made it impossible for Tu Lai to go out to gather wood, and the rice supply in the cave was also running low. He began to worry that if the rain continued, his elderly mother would face starvation. Fortunately, this morning, the weather suddenly cleared after several days of constant rain. Tu Lai felt relieved and happier than ever. He greeted his mother and then took his familiar hammer, heading to the usual forest to chop wood. On the way, his soul was filled with happiness because he could continue to earn a living for the two of them. When he arrived at the usual place to chop wood, from afar, Tu Lai saw the figures of 3 young women passing by. When they saw someone, the 3 figures quietly went in another direction. Not paying much attention, he set down his water container and prepared to work. But just then, his eyes suddenly caught a gleaming object by a rock. It was a golden hairpin, lying askew as if waiting for someone to pick it up. Without hesitation, Tu Lai picked up the hairpin and immediately ran after the 3 young women to return it to them. With sincerity and integrity, he did not think of keeping the valuable item for himself. When he returned the hairpin, the 3 young women looked at him with eyes full of emotion and respect. They had heard of Tu Lai, a man unconcerned with wealth, not seeking repayment in money, but always willing to help others selflessly. From then on, mysteriously, at Tu Lai's cave dwelling, people secretly brought gifts of white rice and fine meat for him and his mother. This occurred each time Tu Lai went out to gather wood. He did not know who sent these gifts, but he felt deeply grateful. Life for him and his mother became easier, no longer fraught with scarcity during the lengthy rainy days. And then one day, Tu Lai's life was about to change forever. One early morning, as Tu Lai was still drowsy from sleep, suddenly a fairy gently sat beside him. He did not know how long she had been there, but her presence shone brightly, making the surroundings seem magical. The fairy was so beautiful that it stunned him. She wore a light sea blue veil, and her silky green hair was adorned with a fresh garland of flowers, giving her an elegant and graceful appearance. In his humble clothes, Tu Lai felt embarrassed as he looked at her. He quickly sat up, unable to hide his surprise. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The fairy spoke softly, her voice as clear and soothing as a flowing stream or birds chirping at dawn. "I am the one who dropped the golden hairpin the other day, which you kindly returned. I have thought a lot since then. In life, riches do not constitute true happiness. Being near a virtuous person is the real joy of life. I am wealthy, with ample assets, but my parents are gone, and my husband has passed away, leaving only my 2 young children. Now I have come here, wishing to follow you, hoping you do not disappoint me. I wish to take care of your elderly mother in your place, and help you study to achieve fame and virtue for the benefit of the world. If you stubbornly refuse, I fear your talent and virtue will be buried deep in this secluded cave." Her voice was calm and earnest, making Tu Lai's heart flutter. Each word she spoke seemed to pour gently into his ears, soft and sweet. The space seemed to be enveloped in a serene, emotion-filled silence, with the twinkling light of dawn and the refined beauty of the fairy sitting beside him. Tu Lai looked at her with astonishment, his heart as if in a strange dream. Everything was incredibly beautiful and delicate, yet he remained cautious and deeply committed to his simple life and his elderly mother. The story became stranger than ever, as each word from the fairy seemed to pour into Tu Lai's ears, bewildering his mind. He felt as if he was living in a fantastical dream. He wondered, is this a dream or reality? Is she real or just an illusion? After a moment of reflection, Tu Lai's expression became serious, and he spoke earnestly, yet with a sense of duty. "I see you are a virtuous and wealthy person. Surely, this is due to the virtues accumulated in your past life. As for me, I am but a poor man without talent or virtue. How could I possibly be worthy of you? In my opinion, a widow like you should honor her husband and raise her children to be good people, which is the true meaning of life." Tu Lai continued, his voice calm yet decisive. "Currently, I have my elderly mother. If I were to marry, my love for my mother would be divided, which is not in keeping with filial piety. And you still have 2 young children. If you were to remarry, your love for your children would not be whole. My mother needs me to be happy, and your children need you for their well-being. Therefore, I advise you to return home to care for your children and to let go of this matter." He paused, then continued, "You fear that my virtue will fade in this desolate mountain forest. But if I truly possess the virtue you speak of, then even the wild animals in the deep forest need that virtue to protect and shelter them. If one has virtue, it can be used to do good anywhere, in any circumstance. It is not necessary to live amid fame and fortune." Tu Lai's words, though gentle, radiated wisdom and self-respect. He clearly understood his role in life, a dutiful son and a person who lives simply yet with deep compassion. He was not swayed by wealth or beauty, but remained steadfast in his principles, valuing family love and compassion for all beings. As the fairy listened to Tu Lai's rational and sincere words, she seemed to understand his steadfastness and filial piety. She said nothing more, just silently flew away. The sky, still bright, suddenly turned gloomy, as if nature itself mourned her departure. Tu Lai watched as the fairy's figure gradually disappeared into the sky, feeling a subtle sense of loss, an indescribable emotion like a gentle regret. He did not understand why his heart felt so stirred, perhaps because her beauty and words had truly impressed him. But then he reassured himself and felt happier, knowing that he had maintained his loyalty to his elderly mother and lived up to his own life principles. He understood that these challenges were to test his virtue and steadfastness. He did not succumb to the temptations of beauty, wealth, or love. He triumphed not only against external temptations, but also overcame the tumultuous emotions within. Despite this, Tu Lai still wondered why such strange occurrences kept happening to him, from the fairy's golden hairpin to mysterious strangers and inexplicable events. Yet, he continued his simple life, believing that these oddities were lessons to strengthen his resolve on the path of filial piety and virtue. Although his life was humble, it lacked nothing in joy due to the simplicity and noble values he steadfastly maintained. One afternoon, as Tu Lai was busy chopping wood, a stranger suddenly ran up to him, looking anxious and furtive. The man quickly pulled a bright gold ingot from his bag and hastily said to Tu Lai, "Sir, I offer this small gift to you, asking for a small favor in return. Tomorrow, if anyone asks whether a group of people passed by here, you just need to say yes. No one but you and I know of this matter. Just one word, surely it won't harm anything." The stranger quickly placed the gold ingot at Tu Lai's feet and ran off before Tu Lai could respond or say anything. The incident unfolded so rapidly that it left Tu Lai stunned. Looking at the gleaming gold ingot in the afternoon sun, he realized the stranger had attempted to bribe him to lie. Without hesitation, Tu Lai picked up the gold ingot and ran after the man with all his speed. Although the stranger had gotten quite far, Tu Lai's agility and determination allowed him to catch up quickly. He grabbed the stranger's arm firmly and said with conviction, "No, take back your gold. I cannot accept this gift, nor can I comply with your request. I am a Buddhist and never engage in deceit or shady acts. The word of a gentleman is worth more than 1,000 gold ingots. A truthful word is worth more than life itself. If you compel me to lie, even at the cost of my life, I will never break the Buddhist precepts." Tu Lai's words rang out strongly and resolutely, like a vow to himself. The stranger, hearing the firmness in Tu Lai's voice, could do nothing but take back his gold and hang his head in shame. Tu Lai continued firmly and decisively, "No, keep your gold. I cannot follow your request. I am a Buddhist and never engage in covert deeds. The word of a gentleman is worth more than 1,000 gold. More importantly, a truthful word is more valuable than life itself. Even if you offer me 1,000 gold or threaten my life to force me to lie, I would rather die than break the Buddhist precepts." Having said this, Tu Lai left the gold ingot behind and walked away, his resolve firm and unyielding. He knew that despite his poverty, he would never trade his honesty and dignity for anything. Word of Tu Lai's integrity and steadfast virtue quickly spread far and wide. Like a refreshing breeze from the deep forest sweeping across the fields, the story of Tu Lai's honesty echoed from the rural villages to the deepest corridors of the courts. People everywhere heard of the poor but steadfast knight who never succumbed to temptation or deceit. Tu Lai's reputation was not just built on his filial piety towards his mother, but also on his honesty and virtue, serving as a shining example for everyone in the region to follow. Living simply in the forest, he shone with the light of a true gentleman, forever a hero in the hearts of the people. A Duk Vung, known for his curiosity, had often heard of Tu Lai's good reputation, a virtuous and upright knight living in the deep forest. However, the king's heart harbored jealousy and suspicion about Tu Lai's virtue, leading him to devise several tests to challenge Tu Lai's resolve. The incidents, like the fairy visiting Tu Lai's cave and people abandoning wealth before him, were actually trials orchestrated by the king's own courtiers. After numerous tests, the king realized that Tu Lai was indeed a sage, unswayed by wealth, beauty, or temptation. Instead of admiration, however, the king's jealousy only grew. Unwilling to accept someone more virtuous than himself, a Duk Vung decided to send an executioner to kill Tu Lai. One day, the executioner, with a bright, sharp sword in hand, came before Tu Lai and declared, "I am here by the king's command to kill you." Tu Lai, hearing this, showed no fear. In fact, he smiled gently and responded, "Oh, that's wonderful. I deeply appreciate your help in ending this sinful, tainted body of mine. But before you do, I only ask one thing. Please look after my elderly mother when I am gone." The executioner, shocked, could not believe his ears at Tu Lai's calm demeanor and compassion. His heart conflicted. He asked, "You are innocent, yet the king, out of jealousy, has sent me to harm you. Why do you not resent the king?" Tu Lai shook his head, his eyes serene, his words filled with compassion. "No, I do not resent him, but rather pity the king. He has created much negative karma and will have to pay for his actions. Before I die, I pray to the Buddha for the king to develop a bodhi mind, to turn his thoughts to righteousness so that he may return to the right path. The executioner, moved by Tu Lai's sincere words, felt his heart stir. He pursed his lips, his face flushed as he raised his sword high, preparing to bring down the sharp blade upon Tu Lai's head. But as the blade descended, it slowed, and then slowed some more, until the executioner could not bring himself to deliver the final blow. He sheathed his sword, unable to harm the true knight. Tu Lai's compassion and calmness in the face of death prevented the executioner from carrying out his task. Tu Lai's greatness lay not only in his virtue, but also in his capacity for forgiveness and mercy, even towards those who intended to kill him. The next morning, Aduk Vung personally went up to the mountain cave where Tu Lai lived. When the king arrived, Tu Lai had already left early to gather wood, so the king had to wait all day before he could meet him. Despite being a powerful ruler, Aduk Vung showed no impatience, but instead waited calmly and patiently. When Tu Lai returned, the king spoke to him measuredly. "I am the king of a great kingdom, yet it is regrettable that only now have I discovered that my country harbors a sage like you. Our land is currently facing turmoil, and I dearly wish for you to return to the court with me to tend to the affairs of the state. If you agree, it would be a fortunate event for our people and the nation." Tu Lai, with his inherent humility, showed no excitement or haste at the king's invitation. He gently and sincerely declined, not because he did not wish to help the country, but because he felt he was not suited to the opulent life at court. But Aduk Vung did not give up. He pleaded 2 or 3 times, even detailing the difficulties the country was facing, and hoping that with Tu Lai's compassion and virtue, he could help improve the situation. Tu Lai, finally understanding the king's sincerity, could not keep refusing indefinitely, but he also could not make an immediate decision. Therefore, he made an appointment with the king to think it over for 7 days and then give a clear answer. The king, though somewhat anxious, agreed and departed, hoping that within the next 7 days, Tu Lai would accept. The king's words deeply stirred Tu Lai. He realized that he not only had a responsibility to his mother, but could also help many more people if he accepted the king's invitation. However, he needed time to thoroughly consider, to ensure that his decision would be the right one for everyone. During the 7 days following their agreement, Aduk Vung constantly thought of Tu Lai. The king visited him personally 3 times, and because Tu Lai was busy working, the king also sent others to inquire about him. This showed the king's patience and determination to have Tu Lai return to the court to assist with national affairs. But Tu Lai, with his filial piety and sense of duty, did not make an immediate decision, but decided to consult his elderly mother first. One evening, he sat next to his mother, recounted everything that had transpired with the king in recent days, and listened to the advice of his beloved mother. Tu Lai's mother, a woman of experience and wisdom, gently told him, "Currently, the country is in chaos. The king is capricious, debauched, and harsh, causing the people to suffer greatly. The citizens are so resentful that they have nicknamed the king Chien Da La Aduk, meaning a king as cruel as a butcher. The court is dominated by flatterers and corrupt officials. The king is ruthless, his children unruly, his marriage unfaithful, and the hearts of the people devoid of morality. These negative and evil thoughts combine to incite bandits throughout the land. The lives of the common folk are incredibly difficult." She paused, then continued in a calm but profound tone. "My son, the Buddhist scriptures teach that we should act according to circumstances. In this situation, you cannot avoid it. Although you do not wish to leave the peaceful life in the mountains, this is an opportunity for you to use the teachings of the Buddha to transform humanity. If you accept the king's invitation, you can contribute to salvaging people's hearts, restoring morality, and bringing peace to the populace. This is your chance to help the world, to bring security and peace to the nation. Think carefully and make the right decision." Hearing his mother's advice, Tu Lai felt clearer in his heart. He understood that although he cherished his simple life in the deep forest, given the king's invitation and the country's turmoil, This might be the moment to contribute to society and use Buddhist teachings to guide those who are lost. Tu Lai decided, after 7 days of reflection, to respond to the king with the intention that if he accepted, he would bring with him the compassion and wisdom of the Buddha to help change people's hearts and bring prosperity and peace to the country. Following his mother's advice, Tu Lai decided to return to the court to assist the king and the people. When he arrived, Aduk Vung was overjoyed, recognizing that Tu Lai was truly a sage. The king respected him and bestowed upon Tu Lai a special title, Quoc Bu, meaning national treasure, reflecting the king's high regard for him. Once he entered the court, Quoc Bu began the work of enlightening and educating Aduk Vung with the teachings of the Buddha. Initially, he explained to the king the 3 jewels of refuge and the 5 precepts. The 3 jewels include taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, while the 5 precepts are not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual misconduct, not to lie, and not to consume intoxicants. These teachings deeply influenced Aduk Vung, helping him gradually realize the errors in his previous ways of ruling. After taking refuge in the 3 jewels and understanding the 5 precepts, the king no longer used his power brutally as before. Instead, he governed the people with virtue and compassion. He understood that power is not a tool for oppression, but a means to protect and benefit the people. King Aduk abandoned his violent and debauched ways and began to build a country based on fairness and kindness. With this change from within, King Aduk Vung became an enlightened monarch, deeply respected and loved by his people. The citizens of the country no longer resented him, but instilled admiration for a king who had truly transformed and brought peace and prosperity to the land. Consequently, the people gave Aduk Vung a new name, Thika Aduk, meaning the king who does kind deeds, reflecting their gratitude and respect for a king who had embraced Buddhist teachings and ruled with compassion. The transformation of King Aduk Vung not only brought peace to the country, but also served as a testament to the power of Buddhist teachings. The ability to change individuals and society through ethics and compassion was evident. Quoc Bu, with his mission, not only assisted the king, but also helped an entire nation rediscover the path to peace and happiness. After King Aduk converted to Buddhism and was influenced by Quoc Bu with the teachings of the Buddha, the country underwent significant changes. The king began to honor and elevate virtuous individuals, those who showed filial piety towards their parents, and decisively punished the debauched, wasteful, and licentious. He banned extravagant activities, gambling, and indiscriminate hunting, habits that degraded the morals and dignity of the people. Excessive drinking and brothels were also strictly prohibited. In the country, the elderly and sick were cared for attentively. King Aduk established homes for the aged, where the elderly and the ill could receive medical support and live in peace. He also encouraged the worship of Buddha in every household, urging people to follow Buddhist ethics, respect the monastic community, and actively practice the 10 good deeds, which include not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, not drinking alcohol, not harboring hatred, not holding wrong views, not being envious, not harboring ill will, and always maintaining a compassionate heart. The king also enacted a strict rule. Anyone who violated one of the 5 precepts of Buddhism, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or drinking alcohol, would be expelled from the country. This measure was intended to strengthen the moral foundation and maintain discipline among the populace. Thanks to these extensive reforms, the country gradually returned to a state of peace and tranquility. The people felt inner peace, no longer living in fear of injustice or violence as before. They lived with compassion, righteousness, and aspired to higher values in life. King Aduk, from a cruel and oppressive ruler, had become a benevolent monarch, always considering the welfare of his people and the country. He proved that by following a path of morality, basing governance on compassion and fairness, anyone, any country could achieve prosperity and happiness. Thank you for taking the time to follow this story. If you felt any emotions or learned a meaningful lesson from the story, please share it in the comments below. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and feelings. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to not miss any new videos. Together, we will continue to spread the good values of life. See you in the next video.